Last week, we talked about the cost of pretending and how sometimes we just have to pretend, try things on for size to find our true niche in the world. Well, this week, we have someone who has found her niche. She went from pretending to be positively powerful to living through the Schmidts in a very real, genuine, authentic way. And her business has blossomed in more ways than you can imagine in 4 short years. So, if you love hearing a success story, this episode, my friends, is one you don't want to miss. Welcome to the Solo Grind, your weekly coffee break with me, a fellow small business owner who is right there with you by your side, figuratively speaking. And this week, we are actually welcoming a guest, one of my favorite clients, which I gotta say, I love all of my clients, but this particular client has had me by her side for quite a few years, and it has been my pleasure watching her blossom and grow in some really incredible ways. So grab a cup of coffee, my friend, find your favorite spot, snuggle up with your sweet little pup if you have one at your feet, and let's tune in to this week's story of success. Hello, Nicole. Welcome to the Solo Grind. I am so excited that you were here with me today because honestly, we've been talking about this for a while and it's time that you show up and come and join me.
I am so excited to be here with you, Teresa. You are always in my corner and I am so grateful for that.
Oh, thank you so very much. So speaking of being in your corner, we have worked together for quite a while. When you launched your first coaching business, Positively Powerful, I believe is what it was.
I'm giggling a little bit because first of all, that was a mouthful and
it was a mouthful. And I'll be honest, I think we've talked about this before. Yeah. When you came to me with Positively Powerful and the direction you wanted to go, I was like, oh, this isn't going to work. But you were so new to coaching and still finding your feet as a coach and
just in business in general, of, online business and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I knew that it was something that you had to try on for size. Mm-hmm. In last week's podcast, I was talking about that actually. Like sometimes you just have to try things on for size to see how they fit. And to realize it's not the direction you were going. And you realized really quickly that Positively Powerful with Nicole was not the right direction for you.
Right. Yeah, that happened pretty quick.
Yeah.
And that, as you know, not all of your audience knows, but I had some major life changes within that time period. Mm-hmm. The diagnosis of my husband's cancer and then him dying 9 months later. And grief sucks. There's no other way to say it. But the blessing that came out of that is such clarity because I allowed myself to grieve and, let her write to all of my emotions and things like that. Mm-hmm. I was able to get really clear on where I wanted to go. Now, obviously, in my deep grief, I was not looking to the future at all. But when Mitch got diagnosed with his cancer, at that point, I knew I wanted to help others that were in that caregiving role and that were helping others that were going through a similar diagnosis or Alzheimer's diagnosis or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And then I went into deep grief, and then I knew I needed to lean into that, and here we are.
And here we are. And through that, I think it was about the same time Mitch's diagnosis came through, you already knew you needed to rebrand from Positively Powerful.
Yes.
Because you had been helping people with fibromyalgia, living with fibromyalgia as a caregiver or as a patient.
Right.
And then this came out and you knew that this caregiver aspect was a big part of your brand. And so you knew you wanted to rebrand. And do you remember what you were going to rebrand to originally?
Yes. Schmidts and giggles.
Schmidt and giggles. And we did create a logo for that. Do you want to see that logo? The original one we created? Because I have it on my screen. Hold on. Here we go. Here's the original logo, which for those of you listening, I'll put it in the show notes so you can take a look at it.
Yeah.
But this is what you wanted. But yet you knew you wanted to help people dealing with these really life-altering diagnoses and loss.
Yeah. And, when I look at this, it is beautiful in the fact that when you look at it, it's very uplifting and whatever. But what we ended up going with is so much better and beautiful. And, I think the Schmidts and giggles, I can think of other people who have something similar, and I would have just blended in, where now I really have found a niche and have really delved into that niche. And everything about my branding is so easy right now because it's heart branded. I don't know if a lot of your listeners really understand what I mean by that. I know you do, Teresa, but you just know in your heart and in your gut and your whole being, this is where I want to go. And just, when I was saying I wanted watercolor pictures, and then I started sending you some, and then you took off. And I don't even remember who thought of living through the Schmidts. I don't know if it was me or you, or if it was a combination of the two of us. I don't remember that part, but I do remember how, you were with me on my journey of, with Mitch's diagnosis and death. And I remember you just sending it to me, or we had a meeting, I think.
Yes. An impromptu
meeting. You showed me one, and then you showed me the Schmidts and giggles probably.
Yeah.
And then you showed me what you had come up with, where I really needed to be. And it was a no-brainer. And I know that when you had done it, you said, I can't believe how easy this website was to put together, because it was like someone from a divine thing, or, it was just guiding you, and you didn't really have to think about the images, the script of anything. It just came to you. And that's how I've been feeling about my business right now. I mean, obviously you have those lulls and whatever. But that's always, I feel like, when you're kind of in that lull, or maybe kind of thinking, where am I going next? It's because it's you're like, your body and your mind is wintering, because the next thing that's going to just blow everything open, that's when it comes. But you need that kind of quietness first, and then it just boom, it's there. And it's something you didn't even have in your brain before. Yeah. And it just happens.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I know, I sent you this email last week, like, you literally are one of my dream clients. And when I think of my favorite dream clients, which I love all my clients, but your face always comes to mind, because you've always had faith and trust in me. And I do remember how living through the Schmidts came about. It came in a dream. It came to me in a dream. So I typically don't work on client stuff on Fridays at all, but I woke up one Friday morning and I had the whole website, logo, everything in my brain, marketing plan, everything in my brain. And I could, like, it really was like this nudge. And I sat down on my laptop with a cup of coffee and I started designing. And like 3 hours later, I called you and said, can you hop on a call?
Yep. And I remember that. That's right. And I remember that, you're right. It came in a dream. And that's kind of how I feel for me too. It's, in my deep grief, if people have followed me at all with my living through the Schmidts, letters to my husband that I was writing at night is when I would write. And it gets to the point where you can't sleep until you write something. Yeah. You were at that point where you had to just get it down. Yeah. Because it almost nags you, like, you need to do this and you need to do it now. And it just, Yeah, and it just flows. And I remember you using that word. It was just flowing out of me, Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe I had started writing some letters
You
to my
had,
husband.
I think you had. I don't know that I had read any yet, but when I don't even know I knew you were writing those letters. In fact, now I
Yeah.
remember. I did not know you were writing those letters. Mitch was still with us.
Yep.
You were writing these letters to process
Yep.
the grief of his diagnosis.
Yep.
And I didn't know any of that until we got on a Zoom call, and I was like, okay, here's the Schmidts and Giggles logo options that I came up with, but I have one other thing that I want to show you. And then I showed you Living with the Schmidts logo, start off with the logo, not even the website. I already had the website pretty much done.
Right.
Not tested, but like pretty much built.
Yes.
And I showed you that, and you knew instantly that was it. And then that's when I found out about the letters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we started the blog page, and yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. During that time, I have to have lots of reminders of how things went, because I do remember, everything about Mitch and that.
Yes.
In fact, my cousin Becky is reading my memoir right now with Love Nicole, and she said, how you have it so detailed about what was happening at that time. How did you know that? Did you journal about that? I said, well, I had the letters to Mitch, but that time, that was what was on my mind. And, I can still go back in that time and know exactly what I was feeling, what I was doing, what Mitch was doing. So
yeah,
I couldn't keep anything else in my brain, but
well, you had a lot going on. I think
yeah.
Pass on that. You had a lot going on, but that's the power, and that's really why I've been wanting to get you on my show here, is because that's the power of a brand. When you try something on for size, it doesn't always fit. We talked about that.
Yes.
But when you find that niche, when you find what you really want to be doing, what is your passion and your heart, and what you want to do to serve the world and make your corner of the world a better place, it literally, the brand falls into place. And like for me, even with Caffeine Creative, the brand chose me.
Yes.
It really did. I didn't start off being like, hey, I'm a coffee drinker, let's sit down and have a conversation. It just kind of fell into place for me. And that has been my sweet spot.
Yes.
As a brand strategist and web designer. And this has been yours, living through the Schmidts, because let's face it, going through all of what you did with Mitch's diagnosis, and then that fast transition for him, the 9 months that you had together when everything in the world was happening, you literally were in the middle of the Schmidts.
Yes.
And using your last name as a play on, the word Schmidt, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's, and then 3 months later, having my then 27-year-old son get diagnosed with a sister cancer, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Yeah. I definitely was living in the Schmidts. What is so interesting about the brilliance of your dream in living through the Schmidts is that, as I then took all my letters and put some of them and added some and did narrative for my memoir and self-published that. And I have 7 more books that I want to write, and I'm increasing my grief resources and getting more certifications and things like that. Living through the Schmidts still fits.
Yes.
So even in my growth and where I'm dreaming, where I want to be, that's my umbrella name for my business. And everything just falls into place. It doesn't contradict. So it was meant to be, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've done some refreshing a little bit here. Just recently, we did some refreshing on some fonts, I think, basically is what we changed.
Yeah, fonts. And then I ended up going down a rabbit hole and finding, watercolor middle-aged women, which was something I was trying to find earlier, but it was always like, people that looked like 100 years old versus 50 years
right
old.
They were either 20 or 100.
Yeah, exactly. There was no in between.
Right.
And then when we hit that jackpot, things have just
right.
And it's interesting how my social media once I was able to find those pictures and things like that, that how my social media and finding the dream clients comes into play and all of that as well. So yeah, it's very interesting.
It is. So what now, I want you to kind of give us all an update of where things have gone since settling into this living through the Schmidts, which has been your business name for what, 3? Is it 3 years?
4, actually.
4. Oh my gosh, has it been 4?
Yeah, Mitch passed away February 26th, and that was 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
And we started this with when he had his diagnosis. So yeah, actually it's 4.5.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Wow. So tell us, where are you now with your business? And now that you have this brand that fits you perfectly, because it really truly does, through everything you've gone through.
Yeah.
I mean, we just spent, 5 minutes talking about that. It fits you perfectly, and where you're taking your business. Tell us where you are now and what's going on in your world.
Well, to say that I'm dreaming again is no understatement, and is not said without knowing all the pain I had to go through to get there. I haven't been this energetic and knowing I'm where I need to be with, not just within my business, but with what I'm doing with my life now. I haven't had this feeling for over 20 years, I would say.
Wow.
And 16 for sure. I say over 20 because after I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which was over 20 years ago, that I just feel like I've been in a funk ever since. And then obviously with recent events, so that in itself is just affirmation in itself that I am on the right track. Instead of not being able to sleep at night because of grief, it's because my mind is busy with what can I do next? What can I write next? What is my next book going to look like? What are the characters going to be? How can I add more resources that I know as a griever I wished I would have had? So I have made companion journals that go with my memoir, With Love, Nicole, Identity Grief, which I'm really still going through. That can be after you get a diagnosis that changes you. Anything that's a before, whatever it might be, and an after, whatever it might be, that's basically identity grief. Something as simple as an empty nester. Especially if it's your only child or your last child, people really do go through grief with that. But they know they're sad, but they don't really realize that's grief. It can be that you're retiring, because so many of us have our job be a part of our identity. So who am I if I'm not the teacher or the electrician or whatever it might be? And I've always been an educator at heart. And so, that was my first love, was teaching elementary. And I had to leave that job because of the rigors of it with my fibromyalgia. It just didn't work. So I'm able to stay in that lane of my true heart song, I guess. And, but I'm doing it in a different way, and it just feels right. But anyway, I have companion journals, anticipatory grief, which is when you're anticipating, are they going to survive after this diagnosis, or are they going to die? And you're living in that limbo. I am getting other certifications. I'm going to be getting certified this May. Well, actually, I'm starting the certification process in August. I should have the certification in infancy, death, stillbirth, infertility, miscarriage, which has happened in my family. And it's such a quiet grief. And there's so many people that have that grief, and it's just not recognized. And I feel very adamant that that was the next place I needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I have put together curated boxes for people who are going through a difficult time or grief. As I went through my own deep grief, there were things that were given to me throughout my deep grief, which lasted about a year and a half. And those are things that I still go to now. And so I just felt I couldn't continue with resources if I didn't have this part as well. So I have these 3 different levels of grief boxes or thinking of you boxes. They're called Holding You in My Heart curated boxes.
Mm-hmm.
So in fact, I was just getting stuff together because I have a book signing next Saturday. And once you see everything that's together, I actually was at a book signing in March, and I had my table full, and it wasn't just on my memoir, but it was all of these other things that I've created and thought of for people. Something as simple as a hanky with Holding You in My Heart embroidered on it, because I was one of those that cried everywhere. And I started bringing out my grandmother's hankies. One, because it helped me feel close to her. She's passed. Both of them are. And the other is because my eyes were so dry that Kleenex, the fibers of the Kleenex and stuff made my eyes more irritated. So I had to use hankies. So it's just simple to what others might think is so simple. In grief, it's not.
Yeah.
And you might not think of, oh, I'm going to get them a hanky, especially because, I mean, who really uses hankies now but Nicole? I'm bringing hankies back, people. And this woman who had been in grief, obviously still in grief, but her deep grief is over. She's 16 years since her husband passed. And she looked at everything I had there and she said, I cannot believe all the things you have thought of, every aspect of grief, whether it's the grief witness, the people that are witnessing the person in deep grief, or the person who is in deep grief and needs the comfort. And that was really wonderful to get that affirmation from her that, yeah, I really, that's what I'm striving for.
Yeah. Well, and along with, so you have all of these resources to help the griever. You have the curated boxes. You also have free resources on your website. You have a course that people can sign into to help them process through their grief that is paid for a minimal fee. And then there's the free resources that are just available to everybody. And then you have your letters to your husband, which is, you also have letters to your readers, but the letters to your husband is really what I think has set the path and the course of where you're at today, because they were so genuine, so authentic, so real. I don't know that I have another client who has connected as deeply with their audience as you have, because you really do understand what they're going through and you share that without abandon. And that's one of the things that I admire most about you.
Yeah, they're pretty raw. Some people who are in deep grief, it might be a little too much for them initially, because I don't leave anything out. I mean, I say it the way it is or was for me.
Yeah.
But even though grief is basically a fingerprint, everyone grieves just a little bit different. There are, every griever can identify with something that I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, with the Heartfelt Haven, I have the one-on-one option as well to work with people, because I have found that there's so many grievers out there. There's a lot of group grief programs out there, but they don't want to work in a group. And so I really saw that as a opportunity to help others that knew that they wanted to talk to someone that has been there, but didn't want to do it in a group. They wanted to do it in a more intimate type of setting. So that's been another option that I have as well.
And I think that's a really powerful option in a sense because we all grieve differently, but there also seems to be a stigma and a judgment on how people should grieve.
Yes.
And I know like last week we were chatting and I had shared with you that we recently lost our Marley pup. She was almost 13 years old, but she was my sidekick.
Yep.
Always by my side for almost 13 years. And we had to make the tough decision to let her go. And it's very interesting in how I am processing my grief, how others think I'm doing it wrong.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they
That's
mean
a pet,
well.
and that doesn't say that you shouldn't mourn a pet, but it's just like your child, you lost your child. Well, you can have
My
another.
baby.
Yeah.
And she was my baby when my kids had gotten to the stage to where they were moving out of the house.
Yeah.
Because I am an empty nester and she became my baby in a lot of ways, my whole world. And like I have my husband as well, and I still have my grown children, but they have their lives. And my husband and I, we're not like, let's cling wrap, like we're not stuck together at the hip. And that's okay because that works for us. But she was my baby. And it's like, there are people who think I should get over it quickly. There are people who think that I shouldn't get over it quickly. We just this past weekend got a new puppy because I love my little cuddly puppies. And I needed that for my own mental health. I love that little cuddler. And so we got Remy now, and people are like, oh, well, that's way too fast. So they're like, there was these judgments. And so that's why I love your one-on-one, because you give people permission, not even realizing it, just the way you show up, you give them permission to just grieve naturally and what is natural to them and not follow some set of rules of what grief is supposed to look like.
Right. Yeah. There's two thoughts I want to add to that. First of all, I think I just said something. I can't believe I just said just a pet. If I did say that, I apologize because it's not just a pet. When I said that, what I meant was that's what others are thinking.
That's how I took it. That is how I took it. But that's good.
And also I want to say that when I was going through my anticipatory grief and my deep grief, there were other people that were grieving and we would talk about our grief. And then they would say, I would often hear, but it's not like what you're going through. Yours is no. And I would tell them, there is no hierarchy of one grief over another. What matters is how much that person, including an embryo that really is still a human. I know people will probably, have controversy on that, but it is a living being and you have hopes and dreams for that being. And so there is no hierarchy. It's what the impact that person or animal, whatever it might be, had on your life. And just what you said, look at the immense impact that Marley had on your life. That's why you are grieving. And even though you have your new pup, you're still going to have grief for Marley, and you will until you die. But it doesn't mean that you are stuck in a deep grief with that.
Right.
You're learning to live with Marley next to you still in your heart as you move on with this new pup. And then there was another thought that I had with the one-on-one. I do have a course outline. However, what's nice with the group versus one-on-one, in a group setting, and I'm not disking group settings, I actually, in my deep grief, went through a group setting 12-week program.
They absolutely have their value.
And I did benefit from that. So I'm not saying don't do those. What I'm saying is, with my one-on-one, we have the ability to do the coursework, like how I have it set up. Or just recently, I had a client who I worked with, and she said, I know where I'm struggling with my grief. It's anger. So our 12-week was completely, I threw out my course because that wasn't where she was at.
Yeah.
So, in a one-on-one situation, I'm able to meet you where you are and go from there. And that might mean that we go through how I have it set up. It might not.
Yeah.
It's listening. It's really listening to, where the grievers are and going from there.
Yeah. It's really powerful. And it's, again, just a testament to how far you've come. So, kind of going back to the original idea we started with is getting that right brand in place.
Yes.
And I don't want to take away from your story. And
no. This is about your branding and how you help us. So right.
Right. But like, as when you were Positively Powerful Nicole or Schmidts and Giggles, like you were struggling to find your footing and you were struggling. Yes. What do I put out into the world and how do I show up? But from this, in the 4 years, just to do a quick inventory of what you've created, once you've settled into this brand of Living Through the Schmidts, you've got the extensive blog of Letters to My Husband. You've got a secondary blog, Letters to My Readers. You've written a book with Love Nicole, which is an incredible book that especially anybody going through grief should definitely look that up. And I'll make sure that the links are in the show notes so people can find that. You've got a course that allows people to process grief on their own and individually, which that would be me. Like, I'm not somebody to counsel or go to a group. I need to do it on my own because I move at a pace that makes no sense to anybody else in the world. Correct. And so that course would allow me to jump around and do it where I need to be, when I need to be there. You've got a one-on-one that you're working with. You're doing the one-on-one with people to help and guide them through that. And you have a limited series podcast coming out here this month.
Gosh, I forgot about that. Yeah. I've got so much going on.
All of that in 4 years. Like, what
and writing my second book as well.
And working on your second book. And what did you say? Did you say you had 7 book ideas?
Yeah, 7 book ideas.
Moly. Yeah, I don't think I knew that you had 7. I knew you had a second one in the works.
Oh yeah, no, I have 7 in my head.
That's the power of getting a brand that is genuine and authentic to you.
Well, and the others, I felt like I was trying to be somebody else, and like I was doing imposter syndrome, and felt like I had to do it like they're doing it, or it's going to be wrong, or it's not going to resonate with people. But we both know it did not work. Now I don't even. I mean, yes, I'll look at other. Just because I'm always learning, I'll look at other, grief, like David Kessler, who is a main guru in grief education world. And, I'll look at posts from them and other posts and other people who are in the grief business. But I don't go there because I'm trying to copy what they're doing.
Right. And
that's where I know that the two, we're connected in such a deep level. It's like you pretty much know. You don't even have to ask me, even though you do. It's right, and I can come up with something and share it with you, and I know you're going to say, "Yeah, this is where we need to go."
Yeah,
but that didn't happen before. We had to really talk through things, and I had to go through and stumble, and before I got to this place where everything is just flowing and doors are opening that I never expected to open. Yeah. And that all goes to what you have been talking about, when that brand fits you and it speaks to your heart, and it's just so connected.
Yes. I don't think I could have said that any better than you. I think that was perfect. I think that's a good place for us to say, there you go. That's the power of a brand. So.
It is true though. When you have that, when you have the right brand and your websites, you're such a beautiful designer. I can't say enough, and it just all flows, and that just as much as I do. So
yeah. Well, and I do say, once we settled on this, into living through the Schmidts. Like
Yeah.
everything is just so easy. And we get together, but most of the times when we get together for our strategy sessions, we're catching up on life. Like
Yeah,
we don't
I
have a
know.
whole lot of strategy.
I know.
No.
I know.
Yeah.
And
So-
it really has been minor things. Like,
Yes.
as I was going through, it's like, the fonts need to be softer.
Yep.
Even though you and I loved the fonts,
Mm-hmm.
as I was working with people, I realized, you know what? The fonts need to be softer.
Yep. They weren't resonating
just
with
a small
people.
tweak, but it
was an
didn't
easy
mean
tweak.
that we threw everything out.
No.
Everything, all the bones, all the architecture stayed the same.
Right. It literally was just a shift in the fonts that resonated a little bit more with your audience. And it's incredible what that minor little tweak did. And that's the only change that we've made in 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Other than updates, adding all the new stuff that you've got going on. I mean, like,
right. God, I got to add something else, another QR code.
Oh, God. Okay. So, Nicole, tell everybody where they can find you and share the resources that you have available to those who are out there who might need what you have to offer.
Okay. Well, you can catch me at Living Through the Schmidts, SCHMID like dog, T like Tom, S like Sam.com, or you can email me, Nicole at Living Through the Schmidts. And you can find me on Shopify as well. I have all of my book and everything on there. But go to my website because Miss Teresa has done a wonderful job of making sure you have the link that goes directly to my author site that has all of my resources on there, including my book. And you will get a signed book if you go through my author store and a personal message. And also with the other things, you would get a personal message as well, where if you go to Shopify, you won't get that. And my podcast starts, the first one is May 11th, and it's going to be a 3-part series. Mm-hmm. That's a Monday, and then the following Wednesday and the following Wednesday. So, yeah. And I don't know. My Heartfelt Haven is on my website, both the one-on-one or if you want to do it at your own pace, the free resources. Those of you that have read the book, just an FYI, soon I will be updating or inputting the recipes that I talk about in my memoir with Love Nicole will be on my website. So if you want to try the recipes, they are yummy.
They are yummy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much good stuff. And honestly, it has just been such a joy and a pleasure watching you step into your own power and into what you were meant to do. Like you literally are living your purpose, and being able to witness that has been one of my greatest joys.
Yeah. And I just, the vision that I get that Mitch sends me all the time of him just grinning ear to ear and telling me how proud he is of me speaks volumes.
Yeah. You really have come a long way. Thank you so much for letting me to be a part of that.
Oh, obviously, I wouldn't have any other person be a part of it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you again, Nicole, for being a guest on my show today. Yes. I love having you here, and I cannot wait to see what you come up with next.
Oh, me either. I can't wait to see what you come up with next because it's always fun and exciting.
Me too. All right. Thanks again.
Yep. Bye-bye.
For those of you looking to connect with Nicole, or if you just want to check out her fabulous website and brand, Living Through the Schmidts, all of the appropriate links are going to be in the show notes, from her website to her book page and all of the other things that you can find to learn more about Nicole. And thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode of The Solo Grind. I really do hope that it has helped inspire you to find your niche, because it really is true. When we start doing the work we're meant to do, when we step into our real authentic selves, everything just flows so much more easily from there. The key is that, yes, sometimes we've got to try things on for size, but once we find it, Don't second guess it. Don't let someone talk you out of being who you are. Embrace it, lean into it, and success is definitely going to find you. Thanks again for spending this time with me, and I look forward to connecting with you again very soon. Thanks for tuning in to The Solo Grind. If this episode resonated with you, I would be so ever grateful if you would take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It helps others just like you doing the solo business thing join in on the conversation. After all, we may be building our business solo, but that doesn't mean we have to do it alone. And thanks again for spending this time with me. If you'd like to continue the conversation, please feel free to reach out to me at my website, caffeinecreative.io. Have an amazing week, my friends, and I look forward to connecting with you all again very, very soon.